Hi there, CTA aspirants. Welcome back to CTAcoaching.com, the channel where we help you level up your Salesforce career and ace the Salesforce CTA Review Board exam. I'm Hermanni Toivo, and today we're going to be diving into a unique and insightful topic that every aspiring CTA should find invaluable. In this video, I'll take you behind the scenes to the mind of a CTA exam judge as I analyze Jillian Proia's mock exam presentation. I had the privilege of judging Jillian's mock, and now I'm here to give you a detailed commentary. I'm specifically going to be focusing on what goes on in the mind of a judge during the presentation. So grab a notebook and get ready to take some notes, and let's jump in and learn to present and think like a judge. And hey, if you're ready to take your CTA prep to the next level, visit our website at ctacoaching.com, link in the description, and book an appointment today. We'll go over where you're at and what kind of help you need, and whether it's mock exams, personalized coaching, or strategic guidance, we're here to help you with your CTA goal so that you can achieve that faster and with confidence.
Okay. My name is Jillian, and today I'll be presenting the mock scenario for City Scooter Share. City Scooter is a global company that works in 10 cities around the world, B2C company providing scooter rentals to customers. And they also partner with dealerships and repair shops to support their scooters. Their goal with this project is to centralize their processes for rider and dealer management within Salesforce. I am proposing a single org.
So right here, what I like is that she just tells the overall objectives of the project, and she tells what it is that we're aiming to achieve. And then she goes on into her org strategy. I think here, as a judge, I'm thinking, okay, there might be some things which she could have said here, like, for example, what are the risks, what we need to specifically pay attention to, anything notable here. But this is a good introduction, and it really tells what we're going to get from the rest of the presentation.
Org strategy. The people in terms of customers and users for City Scooter are centralized. There's an overlapping customer base, and they are looking to achieve a 360 view of their customers. Their core business processes will be streamlined across all of the regions. And there were not any legal or regulatory considerations such as data residency and no technical constraints that led me to think we needed a multi-org.
So I think here, connecting it to the scenario more would be nice. She clearly knows what is the why you would go multi-org or single org, but I'd like to state that in my view it is better to go single org because that fits better with the requirements, and then go on to say things. But overall, I think she knows what she's talking about here. No, not many questions regarding this that I would have in the Q&A based on this presentation.
Other considerations and just call outs are that we will be implementing multi-currency and multi-language features to support our global presence. And a risk to call out is that City Scooter Share currently has separate development teams and siloed code bases. So we're going to make some recommendations on how to mitigate that. Quick look at their actors. Get that out of my way. So internally, City Scooter Share has 4 different personas that we are providing licensing to. They have support reps who will be working mainly on cases. Therefore, they are getting Service Cloud licenses. Maintenance associates are.
So that's actually not a reason to give them Service Cloud licenses that they need to work on cases. For that, they could give a Sales Cloud license as well. So I would have loved to have a bit more there. Then again, Service Cloud and Sales Cloud licenses are not that different. So in this case, this is like splitting hairs.
working with their service partners, who are the dealers and repair shops that they partner with. They will also be working mostly on cases and dealership accounts, so they'll be getting Service Cloud licensing. The depot kiosk technicians just need to be able to update account records. We'll talk more about that, but I'm recommending just a platform license for them. And the executive team can get Service Cloud licensing as well. Externally, we have two personas. Our customers are our riders. They can have customer community licensing. They are just going to be accessing their own accounts, orders, and cases. And our service partners, who are our dealerships and repair shops, also can get customer community licenses. They will be accessing customer accounts and cases. Neither of these personas have any needs for advanced sharing or reporting.
So this is where I'm a bit sort of okay. Service partners are only getting a CC license. I think there are requirements in the scenario which could prompt them to go otherwise. So this is where I've written this down on my notes and I'm looking for, okay, let's see how it works with the CC license. For example, the using of cases here could be potentially something where we would need another type of license for uh, than the CC license. But at this point, there's still not enough information to say if this is a workable solution or not. But this is something that I did write down in my notes during the scenario.
Here is our role hierarchy. It's pretty basic with our executive.
So this is something that I advise against presenting the role hierarchy at this point. The role hierarchy is a sharing mechanism in Salesforce mainly. So if you present the role hierarchy now, it'll be sort of out of context because I don't know yet what you need to share, how the data model works, etc. So I will not have any context to where to use it. I would generally present the role hierarchy as part of presenting the sharing and visibility requirements of the scenario, or in another place after I've done the data model, but I wouldn't present it before the data model. Although I know that there's many schools of thought here, but this is just a comment on the presentation format. It's not necessarily something that I would pose questions about as a judge. It just makes the presentation easier to follow.
Executives at the top level, followed by our support managers and support reps who work globally. So there's just one level for support. And then our maintenance teams are segmented by region. So each region will have a maintenance manager with the maintenance associates reporting into them. And our kiosk technicians will be on their own role. Next, we'll discuss our system landscape. So as you can see, we have our single Salesforce org at the center. We will be utilizing Experience Cloud, Service Cloud, and CRMA features. From the App Exchange.
So this is something that she didn't mention in the licensing as the CRMA. Who is getting those CRMA licenses? Also, regarding the Experience Cloud, how many Experience Cloud sites do we have? Do we have a separate one for the partners and a separate one for the customers, one and the same? And how that ties into, of course, if we're using a mobile publisher app, our strategy there. So this is something that I did write down a question on, and I wanted some clarification.
We'll be taking advantage of a QR code generator app, as well as Blackthorn payments for credit card processing for our customers. I am recommending a mobile publisher app for our writers. And they'll also be enabled to log in through social media sites, Facebook and Twitter. I am recommending that we go with the auth code flow with Pixie, the authorization flow with Pixie, rather than user agent, according to the most recent OAuth 4.1 recommendations. This should be utilized for all mobile, web, and single-page application authentication. And that will be a layered flow with OIDC. CRMA will be connected to Salesforce data, as well as a new.
So here I'd like to know what the CRMA is going to be used for. I just see it there as a box. I know what it can be used for, but I'd like to know what specifically it's going to be used for. Otherwise, I'm going to have questions about that and just be wondering about its existence.
Heroku Postgres database for our GPS tracking data. This new Heroku is going to replace our existing scooter tracking systems, which are currently in need of improving the efficiency of these systems. And Heroku Postgres will be able to manage the large data volume of all of that GPS tracking data.
So Heroku is something that a lot of CTA candidates incorporate in their solutions. And if you are suggesting some solution, you need to be able to justify and sort of know it well, especially if it's a Salesforce product. So I'm just going to put some questions down around Heroku now as a judge, just to test whether or not you know what you're talking about and how you would conduct a transformation from the current scooter tracking systems to Heroku. That way, I can see if you're just putting it there because you you sort of automatically assume that you're just going to go to Heroku in these kinds of situations where you need to take down an existing system, or if you actually have thought about it and know that, okay, these scooter tracking systems can be migrated to Heroku and have an actual plan behind it.
CRMA will also be connected via our ESB, which I would recommend to be MuleSoft, so that we can get a data set from our financial app for some reporting needs as well. I'm recommending the use of an ETL for our data migration for large data imports using the bulk API. And the ESB will support data orchestration and error handling, queuing, throttling, etc., for more real-time integrations that we'll discuss. We are replacing their existing rental and rider app, which is the core replacement for the CRM functionality. We'll be maintaining an external pricing calculator. Their scooter depot kiosks will also be integrated, and their existing financial app will be integrated. And lastly, I am recommending that we implement Okta. We'll maintain their existing LDAP identity store, and Okta will be our identity provider to support service provider initiated SAML flow for single sign-on, and it can use the SCIM protocol for user provisioning and deprovisioning.
So overall, I like the diagram that she's drawn here. I think it's very clear. It's easy to follow. The boxes are mostly there. I think in the explanations, it's more on the sort of why is the system here? What part of the equation does it play in terms of solving the requirements? And justifying a bit more the reason why the arrows are there that way, and just tying it back to the scenario. So, for example, in what she just said about the LDAP and Okta, why does she recommend Okta? And to just call out and say, we want LDAP to be the identity provider towards Salesforce. So, for that reason, we need Okta to do user provisioning and deprovisioning, etc. To just say why it is that it's there. Because without saying that, I don't know if you, as a presenter, know that. So that's why I have to then ask in the Q&A.
Quick peek at our ERD before we get into our business processes. We are keeping things simple with some Service Cloud functionality. So the account will represent, it'll have 3 different record types to represent person accounts as our customers, partners as our dealers and repair shops, and also our depot locations, the locations of our kiosks and where customers can go to rent their scooters.
So this is something that immediately struck me as okay, we're having the kiosks as accounts, and that seems like okay, that could work. But I'd like to see some sort of further thought on why exactly that is versus some other way of modeling it. Um, and if I don't get that, then that's obviously something that I'm going to ask in the Q&A, which in this scenario I think I did.
We'll be using the asset object to represent individual scooters. Orders will represent reservations. And cases will be used to track both incidents as well as repair requests for scooters. Custom objects, the invoice and payment objects will actually be part of the Blackthorn Payments Managed package. So these are custom objects, part of that package that will be created for us. We'll talk more about that. And we'll be using a single external object to surface GPS data via data virtualization from our Heroku app.
So here I have my question is like, are we virtualizing the data? Why are we virtualizing the GPS data in Salesforce? And like my question is, okay, what are we doing with the data? Are we just going to display the raw GPS data to the users? I'm not sure that that would be the best user experience, just seeing data points of coordinates and timestamps. I'd like to see that in some sort of visualization, perhaps. So I'm not sure that it's justified in being an external object. I think in the data model as well, there are some things that we might run into problems. For example, if we make an advanced reservation of a scooter, how do we know that that scooter is going to be at particular depot in the future? So how do I make like an advanced reservation? And if how does the checkout process work here, for example? So I have some questions about that, which I did ask in the Q&A as well. But also there will be some parts that I think would be covered then in the business processes as well. So I don't know that you need to cover everything here in the data model. Overall, though, like the diagram is very easy to follow. It's simple, and I think it's a good idea is to keep the data model simple, but they still need to be able to fulfill the functionality required, and that's why you have to think about okay, so how does everything work in terms of the process? What are all the entities that I need? What are the relationships between all the entities that I need? And then only go into and do the data model. Um, Using the scooters as assets, I think that's a good idea. Just to more sort of tying back and explaining why and what were the options that were considered, etc. Here a bit more. I think the process and sort of what each entity is was very well explained, but I think more about the why is needed in this case.
All right, so let's take a look at our scooter rider registration process. Our riders need to be able to register as users before they can actually reserve a scooter. So we'll be enabling self-registration on an Experience Cloud site for our customers. They need to enter their name, address, phone number, and driver's license number and preferred language. So I'm recommending a custom registration page. But then also we need to verify the validity of their driver's license in real time during this step. So I'm assuming that we have access to some web services for each country to be able to verify the driver's license. And so this will be a second step that is collected via a login flow after that initial registration. And we'll do a request and reply.
Hold on a second. So login flow to do this. Uh, I'm thinking that a login flow would then run every single time that the user logs in. So that's a bit unnecessary unless we need to, of course, validate the driver's license on every single login. I did ask a question about this in the Q&A. Uh, I think here there might be better approaches, such as, for example, on the registration page, actually having the validation to check from the external service the validity of the driver's license and putting that into the logic of the actual sign up page. That would work fine. If there's a requirement that we need to validate the driver's license upon every single login, then the login flow would work here. But I don't see, as of the requirements stand right now, I think this is not the optimal solution here.
Synchronous integration call out to the web service via the login flow. And the ESB will be able to orchestrate that call out to the correct web service and then write back the confirmation of the verification to Salesforce. Riders can upload a photo of themselves to their profile. So I'm recommending just the standard functionality using the My Profile feature in Experience Cloud. And then once they're registered, they can start reserving scooters. So they can reserve scooters up to 1 week in advance, either on our Experience Cloud site via the browser or mobile app. I am assuming that that the customer experience and usability is going to be really important since these are external users. So for that reason, I am recommending a custom Lightning Web component that will be able to guide users through this reservation process. And that one of the features in that LWC will be to control the date filter so that they can only reserve up to a week in advance.
So here I like the fact that she justified her answer. I think maybe just adding and saying that other options don't offer as nice control over the UI as an LWC or something like that uh, would have made it even better, but this is really good already.
They'll be able to search for the depot locations, which are our accounts. Accounts are private since we have several different record types, but we'll be able to share all depot location accounts with all portal users. So they'll be able to see all depot accounts.
How is that going to be happening? Is my question. Uh, if Because if accounts are private, how are we going to share these accounts with the CC licensed users? That is a bit of a mystery to me.
During this reservation process, we also have to do a call out to our pricing calculator system to calculate the rental cost estimate. So this will be a request and reply process. It needs to be synchronous so that the user on the screen can see the pricing estimate before they move on to confirm their reservation.
How does the integration work? Just give a little overview. But yeah, perfect, spot on integration pattern here in this case. We need a request and reply because of the real time feedback. Um, Spot on.
Then they'll see a screen that allows them to review and confirm, and this will result in an order record for their reservation. The system also needs to generate a QR code, which will be used when they go to check out the scooter. And for this, I'm recommending an app exchange product to generate the QR code. I think there are several free options out there so that we can avoid any custom coding for them.
Okay. All right. So then the question is, we're using orders here. What about order line items? Do we have those in the picture? Because if we're choosing just orders in this case without the line items, then I don't think that order is necessarily the best thing to use. Um, just because that's meant for it comes with a lot of baggage as well, compared to just using a custom object. Although that's something that there isn't necessarily like the correct answer There's just more and less justify things. It's not going to make or break your scenario whether or not on how you choose to do that.
Yes. So after they have their reservation, they're able to go check out.
Oh yeah, one more comment about the reservation process. This is going to come up, so we're going to have a QR code, but I think it's important here to state what the QR code needs to store inside itself. Because when you scan the QR code at the depot, you're in fact transmitting some piece of data to the depot, which is something that we do go back and forth on in the Q&A later on. And something important here is as well as are the depots connected to the internet constantly, or are they connected there just can they have outages, internet outages? And this is something also that applies to the future solution as well coming up.
The scooter that they reserved. Our scooter locations are Wi-Fi enabled, so they're able to tell the system when the customer has come to check out the scooter. So the depot kiosk will do a remote call-in via the ESB when the customer scans their QR code. And it will update a status on the order so that we know it's been checked out. So the QR code will get swiped and update the status on the order. And then during the same step or process, we also have to swipe the customer's credit card. So this is where our first instance of Blackthorn payments will come in. We'll be able to, Blackthorn out of the box will be able to provide a UI to the customer to enter their credit card information, and it can create a pending transaction to make sure that we have the availability for the rental.
So the requirement here is that we need to swipe the credit card um, and not enter the credit card details. I'm not sure if I caught this actually in the actual presentation of the scenario, but that means that we need to have some sort of payment terminal at the scooter depot that's somehow integrated to the depot itself.
After their ride, they'll return the scooter and log into the kiosk once again. And they need to be shown a summary of several different data points. So the checkout location is going to be a custom field on the order. It will be populated during the checkout kiosk login as part of that same integration pattern that we discussed above. The check-in location is very similar, another custom field on the order that gets populated during the QR code swipe. The total time that they use the rental will just be a formula based on the check-in and checkout time that are also captured at the same time as these location data points. And the total mileage, this will be a custom field that is populated via our GPS tracker system. So that will be a remote call-in using the Heroku Connect data sync. So we have all of the GPS tracking data for the scooter here, and we'll be able to sync the data that we need to populate a custom field on the object, on the order object.
So the Heroku Connect here is meant for syncing data between the Heroku database and the Salesforce database. Whereas if we look at the data model that she had, she'd drawn the GPS data as an external object, which means it's not Heroku Connect that needs to be used, but rather Salesforce Connect that needs to be used. And that's an important distinction. So also see, like if we have the requirement to actually see in real time the actual mileage when you actually do the check-in of the scooter, I'm not sure that Heroku Connect will fulfill that because that does only a periodic sync of the data. every 5 minutes, if I remember correctly. And in this case, we need a real-time solution. So Heroku Connect is not going to fulfill the requirements even here, even if we disregard this fact about virtualizing the data versus syncing it.
And lastly, the final charge for the rental. So this again will be calculated via the pricing calculator, doing a remote call-in through the ESB to write the final charge back to the order record. And riders can receive a receipt via email. So all of this data can be summarized on our invoice record that is related to our order. And through Blackthorn Payments, there is a customer-friendly UI.
So one more comment about the pricing as well. For here, fire and forget is actually, I wouldn't say it's the right protocol because the user needs to see it when they return the scooter. So it needs to be uh, request and reply so that we request the final pricing from the pricing system and the pricing system provides that to us. And then we can display it to the user when they are returning the scooter.
That can display the invoice summary to act as a receipt to the customer. And there can be custom actions added to this page. And that action can capture the request to receive the invoice via email. And a record triggered flow will send that email once that action is triggered. So the action on the page will also collect payment based on the saved credit card data that was previously processed through Blackthorn Payments. Blackthorn will not store any credit card number or any PCI data in Salesforce, but it will have an encrypted token linked to the payment and invoice record so that it can utilize saved credit card data. And then the final charge also needs to be sent to our finance application. So when the ESB is getting that final charge data back from the pricing system, it can at the same time also orchestrate the data to send to the finance application. So in the same integration point, when it's sending to Salesforce, it can also send to the finance app. Related to our scooter status updates, for tracking, each of our 2,000 scooters can track up to 100 GPS coordinates a day. But then there's another setting that can even track up to every 30 seconds if a customer requests to turn on the route tracking. So this is part of the reason why I've recommended moving our GPS tracking systems into a single Heroku Postgres application for scalability and to utilize the benefits of Heroku Connect. If we take a quick look at the data volume, we're really not looking at any large data volume for any other objects except for these GPS coordinate.
What about the reservations? That each scooter is rented once a day. That's an interesting assumption, but the reservations will likely be high volume.
Records, which for year one would be upwards of 80 million records. Based on the GPS coordinate data, we want to be able to track possible thefts. And so these incidents will be tracked as cases. So if the data in Heroku indicates that there is a potential theft, the Heroku data sync will create a case related to that asset, that scooter. And we'll assign that case to a queue. There will be one queue of support reps per region. and we will enable email notification to those queue members so that they know that there's a case to be looked at.
This is a sound solution, I think, for this requirement, plain and simple.
The depot technicians are the only ones who can change the scooter depot details. So that's their own account record. Accounts internally will be public read only. And then there'll be a permission set to provide edit access to our depot technicians.
Okay, so yeah, makes sense.
The regional maintenance associates can update the availability of the scooters, which is just going to be tracked as a custom field on the asset record, which is basically saying this scooter is on hold because it needs repairs. And that'll be provisioned via permission set to those users.
What I'm thinking here is, what if we want to take the scooters for repairs and we know in advance when to take them? We set the dates when they're unavailable, and then we set that they're available after those dates. So seeing that could be a further requirement down the line for this potentially a related object called scooter availability could be in order here. But as far as the requirements go here, I see this as a perfect solution. This would be just something to think about in case the judges want to see if your solution can stand some changes in the requirements.
We do have special subset of support reps that are just trained to handle the theft incidents. So there'll be a dedicated queue for support reps who are trained. And we will grant access to their managers and executives via the access using the role hierarchy. Riders can choose to make their contact details private if they choose to. So on Experience Cloud or for Experience Cloud users, there are API controls on the user object that can help us control this. So we'll create a user-friendly option for customers via a screen flow, which can update these settings and it can be displayed to them on their My Profile page. The repair service managers cannot see the driver's license details, so we'll control this via field level permissions, either via permission set or profile, but I would also recommend that the driver's license numbers that we're collecting are stored as encrypted fields. Repair service managers should only see maintenance repair details for their own repair shop. So the cases that are assigned to a specific dealer or repair shop will the account ID on the case will be a lookup to their account. So this will enable us to utilize a sharing set.
So far, I think these requirements have been met quite well, but some of them have been solved in such a way as they to potentially conflict with a future requirement in the scenario as well. So we'll see.
Riders, again, can use Google or Facebook. So we are enabling Google and Facebook as auth providers and adding those to our Experience Cloud login. Again, enabling self-registration that we already discussed. Internal employees who are logged into their corporate network should automatically be logged in. So I'm assuming that they're probably working in a Microsoft environment. So Okta will enable us to utilize Kerberos with IWA to automatically log in those users.
Good solution there.
And we will enable and enforce SSO for users who are not logged into the network so that they can log in with their LDAP credentials. And we already mentioned that we're going to be using the SCIM protocol through Okta to do automated provisioning and deprovisioning of users in Salesforce based on LDAP. Riders need to be able to see a complete history of their rentals on their Experience Cloud site. So this can be a simple solution with just a list view of their orders. But they also need to be able to see details about their rides. I'm assuming that this means details about like where they went on their route. So this is where that external GPS data will come in. There'll be a OData connection for an external object from Heroku, and a related list on each rental record will allow our customers to be able to view the GPS tracking for that given reservation.
Yeah, this is where we need a more user-friendly way of displaying the data. Uh, Frankly, if I just get a list of coordinates for like the ride history and where I've taken my ride, that's not gonna that's not gonna satisfy the user needs.
Uh, Repair shops will need a monthly report, which we can do via a standard report on cases. Um, we need to be able to generate reports for a
Hold on. Repair shops need to run a standard report on their cases. Reporting is a CC plus. It requires customer community plus licenses, and they've only been given customer community licenses. So I think here is a bit of a discrepancy in the solution, and uh, there's sort of conflicting ways that these have been solved.
history of maintenance on the scooters, which are cases, and also payments that we've made to our dealers. So those outbound payments to our dealers and our repair shops are not going to be stored in Salesforce. So this is another area where we are going to utilize CRMA. And the ESB will be able to facilitate a data set from our financial app to join that data as needed into CRMA for that reporting.
Okay, so that explains why the CRMA is there. Uh, but I think that would have been good to explain already previously when explaining why that the CRMA is there in the first place.
CRMA will also be used for a monthly trending report based on the GPS coordinate data. I'm assuming that we would need trending data for more than 3 months and utilizing our external data source. Therefore, CRMA is a good solution. And related to our development lifecycle requirements, as stated before, as a risk, City Scooter has multiple development teams around the world who are sometimes overwriting each other's code, and they are making region-specific enhancements, and they just want some recommendations on how to handle this. So I am recommending that we implement a center of excellence to oversee all of the development, as well as the design and requirement decisions. So cities will no longer work in silos, but there will be oversight to make sure that decisions that are made support everyone's needs. I'd also recommend utilizing GearSet with Git to identify code conflicts before things get overwritten in production, and it will also make it easier to roll back code when needed. And as part of the branching and environment strategy, I would recommend that there is a continuous integration environment for feature integration testing to make sure that any region-specific enhancements all work together and don't conflict with each other. And that will be identified really early on in the development process before it makes its way to UAT.
So this is where I really would have loved to see an environment slide, seeing what environments they are planned to be in part of the pipeline, and also a governance slide on how exactly is the governance going to work. I think there were really good elements on how to fulfill that requirement. But again, seeing that visually would help um, in this case.
Um, Local support teams right now kind of don't follow any global coding standards. They all kind of do their own thing. So the COE will also help to develop coding standards that are used across all teams. And I'd recommend implementing code reviews prior to any releases to make sure that everyone's following the same best practices.
And again, here the benefit of having that diagram would be to be able to actually gauge where those code reviews go into the process and why they go into specifically that spot. Do they go right before production? Do they go in some downstream environment, etc.?
Bugs that were fixed in UAT, now current state often still show up in production. So GearSet, again, will be able to help identify code conflicts, but they'll also be able to support testing automation and make regression testing a lot easier prior to each deployment to make sure that new features aren't bringing back old bugs.
So here, I think gear set is just part of the solution. I think a keyword here that a good solution requires is just saying source-driven development. So rather than org-based development, so that way we know uh, what we're changing and what's changed from this change of and implementing this feature to another, and that way we don't override each other's development by deploying from orgs to one org, um, or in other ways and manually. So source driven development's the keyword here, and I guess just saying gear set enables us to do that would make the magic here happen.
And lastly, for our rollout strategy here and our overall development methodology, they want to be able to pilot this new system with just their US based offices first, and then roll out to other regions afterwards, knowing that there will be region specific requirements that come later on. So I'm recommending a hybrid waterfall agile approach here, where we can do a lot of the design and discovery work up front to make sure that there's a general roadmap that's going to support all of the regions. And then there can be parallel work streams for region specific requirements as needed. And ultimately, this will lead to a phased rollout process. Um,
This also impacts the governance as well. Uh,
where we will migrate data from our legacy systems, but we'll filter that data by region to only move our US-based offices off of our legacy systems at first. So the scooter tracking systems will go through a separate staging process so that they can get migrated directly into our new Heroku environment. And though that data will also be joined with rental and rider application data from our financial app, as well as user data from LDAP, all filtered down at first just for the US. While in staging tables via our ETL environment, we will perform deduplication, standardization, and data cleansing that's needed here. Move that data into a canonical data model that is ready for Salesforce, and perform our data migration first into our partial, then full sandboxes for data validation and testing, and then eventually into production. This process will then be repeated when each of the other regions are ready for their migration and go live, until eventually the rental and rider app can be fully retired once all regions are moved over.
so my question here is this the only data migration that's needed? Do we only need to migrate data to Salesforce? or are there needs to migrate to other systems as well? And how do we make sure that we complete that migration then in a coherent manner to begin with?
And that is my 30 minutes. Thank you.
So here I have my questions prepared. At this stage, I think there are some parts where there's a bit of holes in the presentation uh, and in the solution. And overall, I think it was very easy to follow the presentation and to get what the solution is for these requirements. There was sometimes good justification, sometimes not. So my questions are going to focus on the holes in the that I've identified and just testing the knowledge on where I think that there's potential gaps in the solution, uh, and testing the knowledge of where I think there might be some sort of just template or boilerplate solution without any sort of further thought to it.
Super. Do you want to take a short break, or shall we go straight into the Q&A?
Give me just a minute for some water, but I'm ready to keep rolling if you are.
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
All right. So let's start off. Um, let's start off with the licensing. So let's go back to your actors and licenses. So we have the kiosk technicians, and they're getting a platform license. So explain what exactly are the kiosk technicians using and what's the justification for the platform license?
So the point of this question is that she said that they're only going to need to update accounts, meaning update the kiosk information. Uh, and I just want to test out how solid she is with this and knowing all these other requirements.
Yeah, so the only requirement that I could find for these users was that they need to be able to change the scooter depot details. So a scooter depot is being tracked as an account record. And so they can update their own location accounts. And platform licensing will give you access to accounts. But as far as I can tell, they don't need access to cases or orders or anything else like that. So there's no need for Service Cloud licensing.
So walk me through, why did you choose to model a scooter depot as an account?
So here I'm asking about, because I didn't hear the justification during the presentation, about why the depots are accounts. I think she explained well her answer to the depot technicians question that I had that I posed, but yeah, this is something that I did not get an answer on during the presentation, and I'm sort of wanting to test what the justification is here.
So a scooter depot is a location, an entity, if you will. So to me, an account record is a representation of it could be a building, it could be a company, it could be any sort of entity like that.
Okay. Well, in this specific case, like what alternatives did you consider other than an account for the scooter depots?
I did consider a custom object. Um, we don't really have any large data volume going on with accounts. So I opted to just keep as close as possible to a standard object data model rather than creating too many custom objects.
Mm-hmm. So a scooter, when I check it out from one depot, I can return it to another depot, right?
Correct. So the lookup from the asset to the depot location can be updated.
All right, I see. Um, okay, so let's walk me through the I guess the next question I have is
So here I should have probed more into uh, the sharing of like how, because there's a conflict in if there are the depots are accounts, how do we share those accounts and only those accounts with CC licensed users without having CC plus? And I should have drilled more in that, but I think I missed it during the presentation.
can you think of another standard object that you could use to model the depots?
I'm not thinking.
So that's part of the field service data model of Salesforce. There's an object called location that allows quite nicely setting locations for assets, and an asset can have many locations, and the depots would very clearly fit into that data model as well. So that's a standard object that could be used here. A custom object could be used here, but I think the account is a very, very funky solution here.
Of any that would make sense.
Okay. Uh, all right. Then let's move to the next question. So describe your Experience Cloud architecture. How many Experience Cloud sites are we going to have and why?
Yeah, so we will have one Experience Cloud site for our customers. That is where they will be able to basically just make their reservations, see their order history, make their payments, etc. And then a separate Experience Cloud site for our repair shops and our partners. That's where they will be able to manage cases that are linked to their accounts. To me, it makes sense to manage these as two separate Experience Cloud sites. They're two very different audiences, our partners versus our customers, and there will be very different processes and components built on each site, and probably different features and login options as well.
Okay. Uh, walk me through what would be the benefits of having a single Experience Cloud site. And are there any Experience Cloud features which would help in achieving what you just said with a single Experience Cloud site?
So this is not really her solution's perfectly fine of having two Experience Cloud sites separately. I'm just trying to gauge if she understands that uh, if we can use audiences here to provide different experiences for different users, as well that mobile publisher apps, it's one per Experience Cloud site. So now we're going to have two mobile publisher apps if we need to enable this for our both of the Experience Cloud sites. So I just want her to sort of state that out loud. I'm asking first very broadly to see if she says it.
The most obvious benefit would be less development and maintenance if it was a single Experience Cloud site. We could also I'm trying to think through the use cases. So I don't think there's any need for our partners to collaborate in any way with our riders. The repairs and the thefts or the incidents are all completely managed through City Scooter and those partners. The customers don't really play a role in that. But if we did have one Experience Cloud site, we could segment our different features using audiences so that they could see different things.
Bingo on the audiences. Still no answer on the mobile publisher, though.
How about in terms of mobile strategy? How does that play into that?
Mm.
The
Asking now more directly about this.
choice here.
Yeah, so my recommendation was a single mobile publisher application just for customers. I did not see the need to create a mobile app for our partners. If they wanted one, we would have to build and manage two separate mobile publisher apps for each separate Experience Cloud site. So that would be a larger development effort. So that could be a potential reason to go towards one.
All right. All right. Super. All right. So let's go through the reservation process and in terms of your data model. So I'm now reserving a scooter 1 week in advance. Walk me through sort of how that happens in terms of your data model.
So here I'm asking the question of, okay, I'm reserving a scooter 1 week in advance, but I don't necessarily know that that scooter is going to be at a particular depot. So are we assigning a specific scooter 1 week in advance, or are we just assigning that come to this depot and we'll make sure that there's a scooter for you, or how does this work? Because the scenario doesn't prescribe that, so you need to make some assumptions here.
So as a customer user, you can first search for the depot location nearest you, which is an account. And then you will be able to select the dates that you want to rent a scooter. The system, unbeknown to you, will be able to look at the availability that is currently at that depot location and reserve a scooter for those dates for you. And link it to your order reservation, which will be the output of that process.
So am I reserving like some specific scooter, or what information does the order have?
The order will have the check-in and check-out dates that you have proposed. And then it will also have a lookup to an available scooter.
Okay. Let's say I'm doing the reservation 1 week in advance. How do you know what scooter is available at the depot at that point?
So I was working under the assumption that it would be whatever is currently in the inventory at that location, but I see what you're saying, that maybe it's not there now, but it could be in a few days. And we wouldn't necessarily know that.
I like it. She acknowledged that there might be a gap in the data model. And this is very good on the Q&A. If you notice that there's something that you haven't thought of when the judges ask a question, uh, it's like, don't try to defend your solution at all costs and just pretend like everything is okay. That will just cause a whole different amount of trouble compared to just admitting that there's a shortfall. Yeah, I think I'm going to fix it this way.
Let me think that through. According to the requirements, there is no restriction or like rule put in place that controls like where a customer can return a scooter. If that was captured during the reservation process, then we could easily predict where that scooter will be in several days. So that would actually be my recommendation, would be to also enforce that data capture during the reservation process, so that you have to say, I want to check out my scooter at this location and I will return it at this other location, or potentially the same one. And that will enable us to know where the scooters are going to be at any given time based on that order reservation data related to the asset.
Okay, let's assume that's not the case. Let's assume our customers don't know where they will return the scooter. They just know that they need to return it at some.
Also, if the customers did know that they're going to return the scooter, they don't know the exact minute or hour when they're going to return the scooter, and or they don't know if we don't know if they're going to return the scooter late or something like that. So um, it doesn't entirely solve the issues, but it does mitigate the way that she approached it.
Some point to some depot.
Mhm. So we'll still be able to know when scooters are available in terms of dates on the related orders. But if we don't know where they are or where they are going to be, then we cannot assign a specific scooter for that order reservation, probably until the time of check-in or checkout, I guess is what we're calling it.
So how does that process then work?
So she's clearly gotten the right thought of like, we can only assign the scooter to the reservation at the time of checkout. Same as if you're going to like a hotel, they only give you the room at the time of checkout, or sorry, check in to the hotel. Uh, or when you're renting a car, just because they don't know whether or not a particular car is going to be available at that place at that time, and if it's the most convenient solution to have. So, yeah, makes sense to do it that way. But I'm just wanting to see if she can think on the fly and come up with the answer here.
So the order reservation will be created with a check-in and check-out date, but the asset lookup will be empty. The system will probably have to have some sort of smarts behind it to be able to know at any given day this depot location needs to have X number of scooters available to meet all of our order reservations. And if they don't, it might have to be an internal process where they actually move some of their scooters around to accommodate if there's heavy orders in one city to prepare for those upcoming orders. And then when a customer does the check-in process, that process will just grab an available scooter that's there in the moment.
Yeah. Good. All right. So your suggestion is to replace the scooter tracking app with the Heroku Postgres, right?
Mhm.
Explain to me how, like, the justification for that and mm, how you would go about doing that.
So this is the question of, did she actually think about or know how that kind of thing happens? Or is it just there to sort of, yeah, this is my take on how I will fulfill those requirements? Because there are implications that that has in terms of like managing dependencies between all the applications that are developed, etc.
So there was some illusion that the existing scooter tracking systems are not necessarily as efficient as they wish they could be. Um, and it is three separate databases to store all the GPS coordinates, which will add complexity for just managing those systems, but also for integration. So I think a simpler solution is consolidating all of that into a single system, especially given that if you want to track a full history of a scooter's GPS coordinates, they actually might have tracking in more than one system in the old approach, right? Which would make it really hard to see the full picture of a given scooter's history. So all of that data will be processed via ETL into probably a very similar data model that will get migrated into Postgres. And then
Okay.
we know
All
that
right.
this can handle large data volume and it can scale with us as we grow.
But then how do you make sure that the scooters are sending the data to the new application?
Yeah, asking this very, very like this question to make sure that we got to reprogram every single scooter.
Yeah, so there will have to be some development work there to basically just replicate whatever process is in place right now for the GPS trackers on the scooters that's sending the data to the existing systems. That asset flow will have to send data to Heroku instead.
Okay. All right. So you're proposing a login flow to check the driver's license details. Walk me through how that works. Once again.
Yep, this is what I mentioned previously about the login flow. Um, Not necessarily the optimal solution unless we need to check at every single login the validity of the driver's license. And I'm not sure that that would even be the valid place to check it in case we need to check it more frequently, but for example, at every single checkout.
Yeah. So I originally was just recommending like a custom reg page to collect the data that's needed when they initially sign up. But my interpretation of this requirement, verify the validity of the driver's license in real time, um, makes me think that we want to make sure it's not expired, make sure it's actually an active license number, right? Things like that. And so I think we would need access to some external services from the country who issues the driver's license. But also, we can't prevent um, a user from signing up on a custom reg page easily. Like we can't stop them if they put in an inactive driver's license. So the
We have a custom registration page, so we can actually put that logic there that when they try to register, we check from the API the validity of their driver's license. That can be, in fact, put as the registration page into the registration page controller.
login flow will basically stop them after they've created their user account, but they won't be able to access any of the Experience Cloud features until they complete this login flow, which is a screen flow where we can perform a call out to validate their driver's license. And if they never put in an active driver's license, they will have a user account, but they will not be able to access the features in the Experience Cloud site to make a reservation.
Okay. When does a login flow get run?
Immediately when you log in.
Okay. So let's say that I have the mobile application on my phone. I log in. the flow gets run at that time, right?
Correct.
You have a valid driver's license. So now, if let's say 3 months from now, I open the app again, how are you going to validate my driver's license?
Like if it's expired. I would recommend that in addition to the driver's license number.
Yeah, so this question is about the same thing again. Like if we have a mobile application with a session ID and an active session that lasts for several months, uh, we can't valid the login happens very infrequently.
That this process also logs the expiration date of the driver's license in a field on the contact record, so that that login flow can reference that expiration date field and reappear if it no longer meets the requirements.
Okay, what if my driver's license is not expired, but let's say I've gotten a speeding ticket or something and it's been revoked?
So the login flow could make this call out and quickly process this validation, potentially.
Asking this because it's possible that my license will expire in it's in an eternity, like in the next 10 years, but it might get revoked before that 10 years. So um, I don't know. I sort of feel like here uh, either there isn't an understanding of like what the requirement actually is, or there's some sort of like defense of the solution that is sort of going to lengths without understanding that there might be some sort of shortcoming or misunderstanding in the solution, or without acknowledging that.
Every time they log in without the user having to take any action. And then a screen would only be displayed to the user if the validation came back to be inactive.
When does a login flow get run? It's only when I log in, but what counts as a login for the login flow to actually run?
Yeah, so if they have like an active OAuth session on their mobile app, it would not run every time they open the app, I don't think.
Okay, so is that a potential problem?
Yes, I had not considered this feature as an ongoing requirement since it was specifically called out during the registration process, but I can see how that would be a
But
consideration.
even if it is during the but
yeah.
doing it as part of a login flow, if it's related to the registration process, is that really necessary? If you just need to do it once, or then if you need to do it continuously? Like regardless of which option it is, isn't there always a better option than a login flow?
Okay, stating it like almost very straightforward that amend your solution from the login flow, or like tell me something that I don't know about a login flow, is what this question is sort of implying between the lines.
Yeah, so the benefit of the login flow was so that it would prevent them from accessing the features until they basically bypass this step. But we could also perform this integration. Trying to think of the most effective way to do this. You could do it on like a daily schedule. But that might be a little resource intensive. You could do it every time, repeat this every time they try to make a reservation also. So I would say that if they don't have an active driver's license, it's still okay that they can log in and maybe see their reservation history. There's no problem there, right? We just don't want them to make a new reservation. So we could do this same integration call out every time they try to go through the reservation process.
Okay. So what's your interpretation of the requirements and what's your final proposal?
My interpretation of the requirements is
Just saying that it's not an actual requirement to check it. Like very, very much hinting at it's not an actual requirement to check it every single time, but to check it only once during the registration process. And to do that, the best way of doing that is in the registration page handler to perform that call out.
upon initial registration, make them enter a valid driver's license before they can do anything in the site. And then ongoing, recheck their driver's license before every reservation. So to achieve that, I would stick with the login flow for the initial registration, and then I would add an additional integration point here during reservation, which would prevent them from getting to the confirmation screen until they put in a new active driver's license.
So let's say my driver's license then gets revoked and I try to log into the app and the login flow prevents me from doing that. But I'm trying to just view my history or get a copy of my receipts or something like that. How does that happen then?
Yeah, pointing out here, like what exactly she said is that I should be able to use the app even if it's been revoked. But again, like this is not an actual requirement. So I'm just saying, like, will she go down this rabbit hole, uh, and just say that we need to check it once. That's it.
So when you enter your driver's license the first time, so the existence of a confirmed driver's license will allow you to bypass the login flow. So you won't see that login flow again, regardless of the status of your driver's license after that first time until you get down into the reservation process.
Okay, I see. All right, let's move on to the next question.
And just moving on because I don't think that we'll get the right answer here. The judges usually on the exam, if you at least if you did well, they will likely try to be on your side and sort of steer you towards the correct solution without actually saying it out loud. And so they will ask in the parts where they think there's a hole in your solution to allow you to fix it. They will also ask in parts where your solution is strong and there are no holes. So just because they're asking a question and questioning your solution doesn't mean that you should change your solution. So you should just sort of be wary of, like, is your solution actually standing the requirements and up to the requirements, or is it a problem of more of like them just testing that? Are you just bowing down to whatever they're asking, or do you actually know the solution and the requirements?
Okay, so yeah. There's a requirement that the users swipe their credit card at the depot to pay. Explain how you would use the Blackthorn payments for that. purpose?
So the word swipe assumes that there's some sort of hardware that already exists at the depot.
And this question is about exactly that, and that in the solution that wasn't mentioned during the presentation.
That can capture the credit card data. And yeah, I believe it would be the same type of feature that Blackthorn Payments supports. It would work the same way as if you were like tapping your credit card on a mobile device or something like that to collect the credit card payment. So they have those integration options available. I think that I would need to learn more about these credit card swiping device and the capabilities there, but I would assume that it would be compatible.
Okay, so I don't personally know about Blackthorn payments, but it seems that like the mechanisms of how payment like hardware works and how it just has a sum for a transaction and it's actually connected to some other piece of software that then does the has the knowledge of what the payment's being made for and whether payment's been made and how much has been paid. And that communicates then with the actual payment terminal.
All right. So let's so walk me through the process of like how does what how does the process work in terms of the user generating the QR code, checking in, and collection of the payment?
Asking this here just so that and the key thing here is that the QR code contains a message for the depot to say, hey, I would like this reservation with this reservation ID to be checked out, or then it contains the actual reservation details, which you'll see soon that we get into a bit of dialogue on this.
So they have their QR code that's available on their order or their reservation. So when they arrive, they can scan the QR code on their mobile device, again, assuming there is the hardware at the depot to support that. Scanning that QR code will send data to Salesforce so that we know that that order status, the order that's associated with that QR code, is now checked. I keep flip-flopping, checked in and checked out. So the scooter is checked out. The customer has checked in to get their scooter. And so at that point, we would probably also initiate the creation of the invoice. And the invoice page that is related to the order record can be displayed in the kiosk, and this will guide them through the process of collecting the credit card data.
How does the invoice page get displayed in the kiosk?
Yeah, asking this question is because it sort of seems to me that this hasn't been thought about in the actual building of the solution, and specifically like what information is carried in the QR code and how the kiosks work. So just probing to see if she's sort of envisioned the process in her head and knows what she's talking about in that way.
So there isn't a lot of information about the kiosk system. I made the assumption that the kiosks were mostly just taking advantage of Salesforce and Salesforce features to be able to display information to the customer. A custom page is point and click configurable via Blackthorn payments, and it can generate a URL that can display basically like a public Experience Cloud page or an authenticated Experience Cloud page to the customer.
Authenticated Experience Cloud page, explain how that would work.
You can do it either way. I think for this use case, if they're just scanning their QR code, they probably don't need to actually be logging in for this process.
Okay, so so like let's walk through like step by step the whole process from
Giving her like a chance once again to complete the sort of overview. And because the users authenticating into Experience Cloud on the kiosk, that would be a bit interesting. We'd have to supply them with like a session ID at the kiosk, etc. And the kiosk just cares about updating the actual reservation. So, and the as long as we can sort of in a safe way get the kiosk to know what reservation it is in question, and then we can collect the payment, because the kiosk, we can assume that it can communicate with the actual Salesforce and the payment system.
me arriving, like me making the reservation as a customer to checking out and paying for the scooter.
Okay, so you have your reservation record. Is that where you want me to start? So I've already pre-reserved my reservation, and I have a QR code that is linked to that reservation.
What information does the QR code hold?
Key question here.
The QR code would hold information about the order record.
So what information specifically?
The date, check-in date, checkout date, and probably an identification of the person who placed that order.
Of the person? So what I'm looking for is that she says an ID of the actual reservation itself.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Then what happens with the QR code?
So by scanning it, the kiosk can use that data, including like a unique identifier for the order record, to perform, trying to see if I have it outlined here. Yeah, so like a remote call-in to update the order status so that we know that that person just checked out a scooter. There would also have to be a step or automation in this process that also links an available scooter to that reservation.
And then so that's the checkout of the scooter, but does the scooter get checked out before I pay for the ride?
You don't actually pay until you bring the scooter back.
Fair point.
But you do have to swipe your credit card basically just to show that you are capable of paying. Um, so I think I see your point. So the swiping of the QR code could link the scooter and then immediately prompt for the credit card swipe. And upon successful capture of that credit card data, then we would basically confirm a successful checkout.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how does the payment process then work so that the checkout can be confirmed? So how does that process work? What's all part of that? What different systems and different actors? And how do they interact? Step by
So
step.
the credit card data itself will be collected through Blackthorn Payments, which can utilize a number of different payment providers, payment gateways. The one that is most tightly integrated with Blackthorn would be Stripe. So the credit card data would get processed through Stripe, and it has the ability to store and save that credit card data. And through the Stripe Blackthorn integration process, it would create the invoice and payment records that we need.
All right. So long line of questioning here on many chances. In the actual exam, you're not going to get as many chances to sort of be correct. They will just say, let's move on. And it's important to not spend too much time on a single question and try to sort of answer it well so that all the questions that you need to have answered can be answered within the time limits of the exam.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next one. So the scooter availability is a custom field on the asset object, right?
Mm-hmm.
And each scooter is an asset record. So can you explain some of the implications of this approach?
So this is where I'm trying to get at with where a scooter might be out for a week, but might be coming in after that week, or just saying that the scooter availability might be more complicated than just a field on the scooter, since there could be multiple unavailabilities or availabilities for scooter. We might schedule some maintenance, etc. So we might, for example, say that after this time during this date, let's make the scooter unavailable because we're going to take it in for maintenance or something like that.
The implications of just using the asset object as a whole or
No,
specifically.
just using indicating the availability as a field as such.
Yeah. Okay. So a repair partner could say, okay, I am looking at your scooter and I need to keep it for a week to fix it, right? So I'm going to or the depot person, I'm sorry, the depot technician is going to say, we need to put this scooter on hold. So that availability field would basically make it unavailable for new reservations. So during that reservation checkout process, when it's grabbing an available scooter, any scooter that's set to on hold would not be selected.
Okay, but during the reservation process, are you assigned a scooter or is it during the checkout process?
The checkout.
Yep. Got to change your entire solution if you change a part of the solution.
Okay, so what's the
when you are
availability
checking
field then
out,
for?
when you are checking out a scooter, you will only be able to check out scooters that are not on hold.
Got it. So, okay, got it. All right. Um, let's see. So the order record, it's getting data being populated from Heroku Connect. Explain how that's happening.
Yeah, this is the part about Heroku Connect versus Salesforce Connect. And what are the two things there?
Um,
So Heroku Connect syncs the data from the Heroku database to the Salesforce database versus Salesforce Connect, which just virtualizes the data and provides the data displayed in the Salesforce UI from an external data source. And using Heroku Connect would mean that we're actually syncing the data between the two systems, whereas using Salesforce Connect would allow us to use Heroku as an external data source and model the data as an external object and only show the data.
trying to remember for which, oh, for the total mileage, right? Let me find that. So I'm proposing that we just have a single field on the order record that is basically a summary of the data that was collected via all of the external GPS tracking data.
I don't think she understood the gist of the question. It was more about like making sure what feature to use for the integration.
So it can just give us the total mileage in a single field on the order without having to look across all of the external object records. So there would have to be, let me think about that. I'm actually not sure if we could do that just with Heroku Connect or if we would have to use the ESB to perform like a more specific query to get the data that we need.
Let's also discuss the like what's the requirement here exactly?
We need to show the customer a summary of several fields about their rental. And one of those data points is total mileage for the trip that they just completed.
When do we need to show that information?
This is when they're returning the scooter.
Okay, so why would Heroku Connect work or not work for this requirement?
Again, forcing the answer out and really like guiding towards the correct solution here.
So Heroku will have the real-time GPS coordinates that will allow us to calculate the total mileage. But yeah, so this would need to be like a real-time call out as I'm thinking through that. So I'd like to change this. So we can obviously still would use yeah, so this would be utilizing the ESB to do a call out to Heroku to get that data and do the calculations and data transformations that we need to format it as total mileage.
Okay. Let's see. Oh yeah, one final point. So you plan to use the GPS data as an external object. Um, so did I understand correctly that you're going to display the users the location history of their trip as a related list?
Yeah, just very obvious question here. Is this like the best way of fulfilling that? I think on the previous question though, like the answer was correct that if we have the more real time in data fetching, then we don't actually need to do that sort of Heroku Connect, and that sort of avoids the problem altogether. But I think I I should have pressed one more question about like tell me about the limitations of Heroku Connect altogether.
Yes. Yes. So external object data can be surfaced to Salesforce users at looking like a regular related
So
list.
how would that look like if I'm a user looking at my previous scooter trips or a previous scooter trip? What kind of data would that related list hold?
It would be the raw GPS data,
Yeah, now she realizes it.
probably geolocation and date timestamps. That's not very pretty to look at. Okay, yeah, I would like to change that. We could take that data and reformat it in a user-friendly way that would be good for customers using a custom Lightning Web component. So if they're looking at an order, the LWC can be on that record page displaying data from the external data source in a customer-friendly way.
So what would be a customer friendly way in this case?
Um, Probably just a summary of, because it's very vague. Like they just want to know.
I'm just asking for like what would you think is a customer friendly way, and if she's able to sort of state that out loud. Not that there's like any particular correct answer here. There's answers that are correct, and then there's answers that are less correct for this question.
About their rides. So I would say check in date, time, and location, check out date, time, and location, and total mileage. There was one requirement that alluded to a feature where customers could track their route. So that would probably be best displayed to a customer in a map format. So the LWC could also use those geo coordinates to display a map of their route.
Yeah. Okay. No further questions.
The end.